Hi folks, so we had a new moon in the sign of Virgo a little over 14 hours ago at 4 a.m. today, September 17th on the Pacific West Coast. And it's an oddly stabilizing and constructive new moon, a gratefully stabilizing and constructive new moon, but it's not as if the time in the current astrology is necessarily a stabilizing or an immediately stabilizing, I should say, or immediately constructive one. As a reminder, and we should start here, we are at a time in the second half of 2020 where we are shifting our areas of development, or sort of the primary parts of our chart that are going to require intense involvement, change, and shakeups. The eclipses that have been in the signs of Cancer and Capricorn since the middle of July 2018 are transiting and have begun the transit for all intents and purposes into the signs of Cancer, into the signs of Gemini and Sagittarius. So they're moving from Cancer, Capricorn to Gemini, Sagittarius. And we're in the midst of this change. We are very much still under the shadow of the new moon solar eclipse in Cancer around June 20th or 21st of this year. But soon we're going to give over to the energies of the Gemini full moon lunar eclipse on November the 30th. And the week before and after September the 30th will play an important role in declaring to many of us what that eclipse will be about. And then in the middle of December, we have the first of the Sagittarius new moon solar eclipses. We had a lunar eclipse in Sagittarius around June the 5th already this year. So eclipses from Cancer, Capricorn moving to Gemini, Sagittarius, and in urgent need, an absolute need, even a fated need, consequences being brought to us, lessons being learned, opportunities to be availed of, wherever the sign of Cancer and Capricorn falls in your chart, what houses it occupies, what those houses stand for, and a need to incorporate those lessons and deal with those consequences, which is the same thing as incorporating lessons really, so that you can embrace this new set of energies that is underway. At the same time, we have the planet Mars in Aries. I know people who watch my video have heard this a lot, but we need to set the stage, and in a few minutes I'm going to be talking about the new moon in Virgo. And Mars in Aries, the planet of undiluted self-interest and self-assertion. Mars typically spends 45 days transiting a sign, but it's spending 6 months transiting Aries in the second half of this year. Mars in July and October was direct in Aries. September the 9th went retrograde. So this push to embrace the new, disruptive, self-interested push to embrace the new, in July and August has currently given way to an important retreat, to a laying down of arms, to a taking stock, to not necessarily acting and manifesting externally as much as needing to pull back on the arrow. Now, as I've warned you in my Mars in Aries video, and I'll put a link to that at the end of this video once I'm done processing it, pulling back on the arrow and Mars going retrograde doesn't mean that the arrow will necessarily change direction once Mars is direct. It may keep the direction, but there's sometimes under Mars's influence, things can move so fast and in such a masculine, testosterone-filled way, in such a bull in a china shop way, that we sometimes need to take a step back and really make sure that we've done our due diligence with regard to whatever direction that we have chosen to take in order to disrupt the old and move us into the new. Certainly the old, and by that I mean the energies that have been in place since the middle of July 2018, start to gain momentum with Jupiter going direct a few days ago and Saturn going direct in Capricorn, both of them in Capricorn, at the end of this month in September. And they're going to start to push to, as they both leave Saturn and enter Aquarius in December of 2020, they're going to push to close out the old so that we can embrace and really move into the new. Now, as I've mentioned to you before, the normal annual transits that occur using the personal planets, the sun, the new moons, the full moons that occur around this time in the same signs, Mercury's transits and Venus's transits, they continue, but they create an interesting set of diverse energies in relationship to the signs of Cancer and Capricorn, particularly the planets in Capricorn, Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto, and Mars in Aries, to some extent Uranus in Taurus, and Neptune in Pisces. Sometimes they assist, stabilize, provide opportunities. Sometimes they get into a deadlock and create tension that requires us to grow. There's a lot, as I explained in yesterday's video, with Mercury currently in Libra squaring the 3 planets in Capricorn, Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto, and opposing Mars. Certainly, Mercury being the ruler of Virgo and therefore the ruler of this new moon, some element of these next 4 weeks, but certainly the next week, week and a half, has a strong communicating and processing and cognition around relationships and what relationships stay and what relationships go and what relationships need to evolve, what relationships need to be discarded. It's a complex and interesting set of energies that I covered yesterday, and again I'll place a link to that video as well at the end of this one once I'm done processing it. This particular new moon in Virgo trines, creates an opportunity, at the very least with Saturn in Capricorn, powerfully placed in Capricorn, and Jupiter and Pluto as well. But the trine is directly, I mean practically to the degree, frankly, to Saturn. And a new moon trine Saturn, the new moon affects the next 4 weeks. And the new moon trine Saturn, while there's all this relationship drama and processing going on, where frankly Mercury is not quite as strongly placed as Mars in Aries, which it opposes, and these planets in Capricorn, when it comes to Jupiter and Saturn, we kind of have to submit to them. You know, they operate with their own wisdom with regard to what lessons need to be learned and what new beginnings need to be created. With Mercury, the Moon, Venus, and Mars, those reflect our personal energies with regard to what it is that we may choose to or decide to do, what we value, how we communicate, how we process on this earthly place. When it comes to Jupiter and Saturn, we're interacting with, you know, our assertive energy is already at odds with fated energies in this kind of constructive tension. And here comes a new moon in a very practical, there's something about this new moon that while this churn and this turmoil is occurring of incorporating the lessons of the old and embracing the energies of the new, there's an, you know, I almost feel like calling it an underground opportunity to start something or create something enterprising that is new. It's almost, with the signs of Virgo and Capricorn, the new moon in Virgo trining Saturn and Capricorn, and this is a general reading, so I'm reading the energies for the signs. I don't know in what houses this falls in your chart, so that's going to impact significantly what I'm saying. There's an opportunity to construct something. It's almost as if as these relationship energies are playing out, there's an opportunity to construct something either professionally or materially or financially, to sow the seeds for something that can have a long-lasting foundation in some ways. All those energies should be paid attention to. The idea of removing oneself a little bit from the drama, even though we're going to be in the middle of a certain amount of drama, removing ourselves and paying attention to what we can actually construct either around it or keeping it separate by compartmentalizing it. There's a constructive space that opens up. Trines are favorable flows of energy, and the only disadvantage of a trine is that the trine energy can come and go and we may not avail of it. So there is an opportunity to avail of that is constructive, arguably professional, certainly material, financial. It could have to do with Virgoic issues related to subordinates and teams and service, serving yourself, serving others, health, diet, exercise, habits, productivity. And with Saturn and Capricorn trining, creating an opportunity to really think strongly about, no question, your professional success and even to some extent financial success, earthly success. You're here, what does it mean to be successful here? What does it mean to climb the top? In the middle of all this churn that is happening, we have this strangely underground stabilizing energy. Count your pennies, know what to save where you need to save, know what to construct, know how to go about it. There's a very welcome steadying and practical energy at play for the next 4 weeks. The transits in Libra and then Scorpio are not, we're really going to be quite pummeled astrologically as we now move into the rest of September and October and even November. By the time the next new moon occurs on October the 16th, Mercury will already be retrograde by a day or two. And so, especially over the next couple of weeks, if you do have some, I would pay attention, part of embracing the new and being done with the old also requires us to take a look at anything with regard to our own productivity and the way we manage our 24 hours, our behaviors, our patterns, our habits, our routines, and clean out the clutter related to that. Embrace a new structure if you feel that it's going to be useful. Make a healthier relationship with your inner child so it doesn't sabotage your productivity. Take care of yourself. Make sure you get enough rest. Make sure that you are serving others and serving yourself in a healthy balance. Serving yourself and serving others in a healthy balance, wherever the priority needs to fall for you. And maybe as you embrace the new, this is a welcome opportunity to clear out clutter on various levels, energetically, mentally, certainly. And part of this activity related to relationships that is going on with regard to partnerships, marriage, business partnerships, codependencies, people with whom finances might be linked or maybe threatened to be linked, or where there are opportunities to be linked. Part of that relationship evaluation may also have a kind of a cleaning out the clutter kind of aspect to it. Venus is as I've mentioned to you, these planets that are doing these transits, Venus, Mercury, the Sun, the new moons and the full moons, sometimes are working with the energy, sometimes are working against them, depending on which sign they're transiting. Certainly as they move into Libra, and Mercury is in Libra, the Sun will be in Libra in 5 days' time. Venus will enter Libra eventually. Mercury will go retrograde in Scorpio back into Libra, then into Scorpio. We're entering a time when these planets, these personal planets, will oppose Mars and square Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto. So the churn and the urgency with which we're going to be asked to incorporate lessons, deal with consequences. Mars retrograde is kind of doing us a favor right now by at least taking a step back. Once Mars goes direct and Mercury goes direct, as I've mentioned to you, between the middle of November to the end of December, even beginning of January, it is all systems go. It is all about, at that time, releasing the old. The old will be released and the new will have to be embraced. So this welcome and stabilizing new moon that trines Saturn, practical, earthy, achievement-oriented, really cognizant of tidiness and productivity, and assisting us to kind of urging us to clear out a certain amount of clutter, should be welcomed at this point in time, and should be availed of, avail of this energy. And it is particularly tied to learning lessons, and particularly tied to the sign of Capricorn, where we need to release something and really look at our behaviors and patterns and our own integrity around wherever it is that Capricorn sits in our chart. Our own integrity with regard to where Capricorn sits in our chart, and however we behave in that part of the chart in such a way that it is really, our behaviors are really aligned with meeting our highest potential and are not sabotaging us, whether this is behaviors and patterns related to relationships, our own habits, how we approach something, our own integrity, our own word. There's something about this new moon that in the middle of this turmoil within a week, Mercury will be squaring Saturn by the end of September. So this new moon that trines it, already you have the ruler of the new moon creating a certain amount of tension with these three planets: Jupiter today, Pluto soon, Saturn. And within a week, Mercury will go ahead, and the planet of communication is going to clash with Mars. The turmoil is already there, and is really going to be accelerating and increasing. So this feeling of intensify, we're heading towards the election. Of course, just look at the way the world is organized right now in terms of key dates and deadlines. By the middle of November onwards, it will be forward movement. We'll have a sense of where things are at, and it will be all systems go. I'm going to do a separate video on my thoughts on COVID, but you know, that's where this new moon is at. The new moon is ruled by Mercury, which is in Libra. Libra is ruled by Venus. Venus is in Leo. Leo is ruled by the Sun. The Sun is in Virgo. Virgo is ruled by Mercury. So the chart is disposited by the Sun, Mercury, and Venus. And again, Mercury being in Libra, Mercury and Libra being a let's sit across from the table and talk it out in terms of relationships and partnerships and contracts. But the talk somehow being a valiant, but in some ways a futile attempt to arrest arrows that are already in motion, and that have to do with a set of fated consequences that the gods have in store for us. But the idea of the communication is still necessarily and helpful because it'll allow us to incorporate what some of these changes are. And Venus being in Leo, and so they're also being, from a relationship perspective, a healthy dose of self-expression in the air. You know, as much, take advantage of the Virgo Capricorn energy that is trining and supporting each other right now. Create a separate part of your life that is about your habits and your productivity and cleaning out the clutter, that is unsullied and unaffected by all the relationship drama and all the ending the old and incorporating the lessons and patterns and boundaries and embracing the new drama that is continuing to play out over the next 4 weeks. And in that space that you create that is sacred and separate, look at your patterns, behaviors, boundaries, habits, productivity, and try to get to a place where you can really clean out a certain amount of clutter so you can embrace the new as you get to the end of this year. That would be my advice, because even with this new moon and with the fact that the chart is disposited by Mercury, Venus, and the Sun, and Mercury is the ruler of this new moon, there's no question that relationship energy, communicating about relationship energy, processing relationship energy, you know, Mars may be retrograde in Aries, but Venus is in Leo, you know, so a certain amount of communicating with warmth and affection, but pride, a certain amount of assertion is still in the air. But then there's also, it's the relationship drama will continue to play out as it needs to, and the churn will play out. But take advantage of this constructive, what can be an astonishingly foundation-building detox. The word that comes to mind is health. Over the next 4 weeks, make sure that you are moving towards healthier. And it's not just physical health, it's also health in terms of productivity. When do you wake up? What flexibility do you give yourself? It's not about rigidity, although Virgo will lead you there. It's a new moon in Virgo. But it's, you know, because if you get too rigid about something, then you'll sabotage it. What is your relationship with your productivity? What is your relationship with the clutter that you've accumulated? What is your relationship with the old that needs to let go of? What needs to be created? What needs to be cleared out? A lot of it has to do with productivity and routines. And you have 24 hours in a day, so how do you organize those 24 hours in a day? How do you organize them so that you're taking care of yourself and taking care of others, taking care of your diet, taking care of your exercise, taking care of whatever you need to take care of in order to be truly productive and effective when it comes to taking care of others, taking care of your chores, taking care of your job, taking care of your responsibilities. Finances could be an important thing to be taking a look at too. And certainly with Virgo and Capricorn in the mix, job, career, absolutely. So create that space to take advantage of this trine, to get yourself in a healthier place. And I wouldn't be surprised if COVID and the lockdowns and the quarantines have kind of made us all a little bit somnambulistic and a little bit fuzzy, you know? It's again, it's not about sharper as much as it's about healthier and moving towards productivity and moving to a place where you can embrace the new. Because as I said, some of this relationships and partnerships and who should be in the boat with me and who should not, and what changes are occurring, and oh, I shouldn't have done that, or I should have done that. What lessons do I have to learn? What I's need to be dotted? What needs need to be crossed? What are new energies that are coming? That is certainly going to continue to play out. And not only play out, it's going to become more and more intense as we head towards the middle of November at least, and then the changes are going to accelerate as we head to the end of the year. Okay, I will leave it at this. Feel free, if you like the video, feel free to like it, comment on it, subscribe to my YouTube channel, click on the bell icon next to the subscribe button so that you're notified whenever I do a new video. My contact information is in the description box below the video, so you can contact me at the email address listed there to inquire about rates. For readings, I can make an easy-to-use version of your birth chart that tells you which planets are in which houses and what those houses stand for, but inquire about the rates first. Don't give me any of your personal information like date of birth, time of birth, etc. until you know you want to avail of my services, and we can take it from there. Okay, till next time.